Well, I think we learned from our last, and we do like to learn from the people that attend and kindly attend our events. We want to hear from you, so fire away with questions as much as you like. Before you do that, I just want to introduce the panel. There's two very brave men here, I think, both graduates. We want to hear from the people that have rented, are renting, what type of investment they're in. We have George on the right, George Mason, who's in fact, to be fair, these two are far more intelligent than the rest of us, so they're probably, good God, that does suit you, Rob. George is, they're first class, blimey, English literature, and now doing a conversion course in law. Louis Skoutelas, CAS, Business Management School, now doing a master's at London School of Economics. He tells me, he comes from Cyprus, he tells me he's pretty good at backgammon. I'm going to take that challenge on because I love beating people with, strong master's degrees at backgammon. Then we have, now Eri is standing in for Keith White. Keith White, he knew Valentine's Day was coming up and he said, it's divorce or I have to take my wife away. So Eri Quanalo has come in. Now, Eri works with Keith at CRM. CRM are the largest independent student manager in the UK, managing 7,500 more now? Yeah, probably more now. Over, say, 8,000 student units throughout the UK. So very much, the management, the service-based side we have with this man here. So I think we can cover a lot of questions there. We know Rob. Now, he didn't talk about so much university tonight, that he was more for the panel, but we thought an overview on residential, because Inspired is very much keen, it's very keen on providing products for its investors in residential, precisely because of all the reasons that Rob actually showed on that screen. It basically outperforms all other assets, and the facts speak for themselves. And finally, Richard Klin on the very left. Now, Richard formed Urban Share 1 in 2006, which is fully invested, dealing with houses and flats, mainly in London, central zones of London, let to young professionals and students. He's come on board with Inspired for Urban Share number 2 fund, where we're aiming to raise 10 million of equity. We've got past the first closing, and it's quite incredible that Richard already, I think, has nearly spent the first million or so that we've already got into that first fund. And the interesting thing is, which we always felt, was, the market isn't that weak in London, to be fair, but he's in cash. There's no mortgage, and he knows his areas exceptionally well, so he's out there getting the deals, still at pretty good discounts from what you've been showing me, Richard. So there we have it. I think it's a good panel. Think of me as, I prefer to be a Bamber Gascoigne tonight. There's something about him. I went to the makeup department and said, I want to be Bamber Gascoigne, and they said, well, you don't have to do anything, just get back, you look very like him. So I thought, well, that's it for the evening. So unless there's any, I thought I'd just start with one question, but when hands come up, we will certainly take questions. It's my responsibility, I suppose, to make sure that the panel do answer those questions for you, and if they don't, and also, I suppose, answer them relatively quickly. Now, the only thing I'm rushing for now is where the hell is my first question? Whilst I'm looking for that, I think let's give the two graduates a chance at saying something, because I think it's quite interesting. I mean, generally speaking, when you go into university, the first year is in halls provided by the university, generally speaking. Year 2 comes, and you have 2 options. You go into what is now the developed student halls, which you see being developed actually throughout the UK, very much the type that you would manage, Eri, or they'd go into houses, flats, and share, and that's the sort of 2 options that the student has. Now, George, what did you choose in your second year, and why?
I chose a house with 4 other mates, purely because I found the accommodation the first year quite basic. The fact that the building was built on blueprints of a female's prison in Sweden didn't lend anything to it. But more than that, it's just when I left school, the last thing I wanted was to felt like I was being institutionalized again. And the fact that I had to share shower units with other fellas on my floor brought back some horrid memories from school. But also, no, I didn't. I'm joking.
It could have been It could have been mixed accommodation, though, couldn't it?
Yeah, quite. And also having wardens walking around patrolling the corridors. There's a sense that that you didn't have much privacy, and it'd be nice to actually to move on and live with mates you wanted to be with.
That's interesting. Yeah. And Louis?
Sorry. It was kind of the same thing for me.
Right.
Going into a flat, because we had very strict accommodation. You had to show your hall passes every day. You had to sign in your guests. Guests had to leave by 12 o'clock, which was hard if you had a girlfriend. So for me, it was more about having your own place to stay.
Right.
And it was also because I got a comfort zone in the area, I guess. Right. So I wanted to have something nearby, private, with friends.
So it sounds to me as though you two have got the secret of actually having a lot of fun at university, but also coming out with a very good degree as well, which is a trick that certainly I think quite a few others don't have. Now, I can't see any hands up, and I'll start looking at or taking questions. But I think the first question I'd like to ask is from an investment perspective, and I'll ask you a slightly different question because you're not don't think you're investors in the student market yet. But just going from Richard and going along, I mean, what do you think is student people now say institutions are involved in it. It's becoming an institutional product. But there must be things where you can get it terribly wrong. I mean, nothing is ever that easy. When people say it is, I always say, well, they're probably trying to con you into a deal. In your view, Richard, what's the biggest mistake that you could make within your type of accommodation that would make the investor actually not get the returns that he would hope?
I think from a pure investment perspective, it's buying. So if you buy well, you're set. If you make operational mistakes as you go along, you can probably survive those. If you haven't bought well, if you haven't financed it well, you'll come into problems. So for me, it's buying at the right price, in the right location.
Right. And do you see, I mean, I know you're quite focused in London, but would there be parts of London that you'd say you'd probably avoid, or do you think London is, because it's London, is pretty good anywhere?
I think if I had to pick a general region in the UK, I'd pick London. Yeah. But absolutely, there are areas we wouldn't touch, and there's areas we love. There's areas our tenants love as well. So, that generally dictates it.
Right. Rob, same?
Yes, it's very simply location. The other issues you can correct and put them right, but if the location's not right, getting to the university or attracting students, because they're very fickle, they'll vote with their feet very quickly. So location is fundamental.
Right. Do you consider the amount of international students as opposed to British students when you're looking at locations in terms of
no, you're looking at
quality?
Proximity to where they want to get to, which is the university or the campus.
Right, okay.